Hey everyone, it's Angelina Papazian with River of Life Coaching. I am a spiritual life coach and a master of social work, and here on this channel we talk about a variety of different topics relating to spirituality, psychology, philosophy, and things that make us human. I am currently in the process of creating workshops and courses, so if that is something you are interested in, stay tuned for more. I am also currently taking one-on-one coaching clients. If neither of those things are your thing, just like, share, and subscribe if you find any of this content helpful, and stay tuned for more videos. So today we are going to be talking about God's provision. Now, there are different words that we can use for provision, meaning there are different ways that we can describe this. There are different words we can use if we don't like the word provision. What we have to keep in mind with these types of concepts is that there are different words that we can use, and each word might mean a different thing for a different person. Different words might bring up certain things for us that they wouldn't necessarily bring up for another person. Some words might carry some baggage. Some words might make us think about certain things that we may not necessarily want to think about. Some words may be really emotionally charged, and it's important for us to really look at that and explore that. We don't need to just find a different word to try to just like push that to the side and not really look at this and delve into it. But we want to make sure that the words that we're using are not clouding our view and clouding our judgment and clouding our understanding of what the actual overall concept is of that word. For example, some people view the word, when people hear of God's provision, they might think of specific religions. They might think of a person who has used that word before. They might think of somebody who has a certain habit or practice that they don't really like or subscribe to, or it doesn't feel good for them. And so when we have those types of situations come up, we could just ask, like, okay, what is it that this person's actually saying? What does God's provision in this example really mean? And what is another word that I can use for it? But for the purposes of this video, we're going to call God's provision, we might use the words abundance, God's support, God's blessings, God's guidance, God's help. God's help is a good one. It's a very simplistic one. But when we think about God's provision or God's help and abundance and God's supply, what do we think of? What comes up for you? Do you think of something that is more material in nature? Can it be non-material? Do you think about things like divine presence, knowing and feeling God's presence, knowing and feeling the divine within us, knowing and feeling that we are never alone? Do you think about guidance, receiving intuitive nudges? Do you think about receiving messages from the divine? What would that look like? Have there been any times where you've experienced that in your life? Do you think about having the inner strength and the inner resources to do something that's really challenging, or being given the courage or being given the opportunity to cultivate courage and bravery to face something that's been hard for you, or face something that's scary, or face something that you may otherwise want to avoid? Did that strength and did that courage and did that guidance and did that power come from you, or did it come from God? What do you think about that? What kind of traditions can you look at? What kind of different wisdoms from different belief systems could you look at that might help you to gain a different perspective on that, or gain a perspective that would be helpful for you? Do you think about things like peace? Do you think about things like you're being guided in certain areas of your life? Maybe you're given an intuitive nudge to go here, or to look into this, or to reach out to this person, or to show up for this opportunity, or maybe attend this group or seminar or sermon, or maybe attend this kind of workshop or panel. And in that process, maybe you're given new opportunities, new insights, you learn new things, you meet new people, you start to network, you start to build your community, you start to feel more whole and fulfilled because certain needs that you have are being met. Did all of that come from God? Are those examples of God providing for you? Are those examples of you being carried through the river of life or carried through the bridge of incidents? What are the different things that have to happen in the background to make certain things happen for you that we may not really see right then and there, but looking back on it in hindsight, we see how it might have helped us in our life? Are there situations where none of this happens? Is this all kind of just a game of chance? Is this all just coincidence? Is there really no God involved in all of this? Some of you may believe that. And this is not to tell you what you need to believe in, what you don't need to believe in. But what I would encourage you, regardless of whatever you believe in or don't believe in, stay open-minded. Try to get different perspectives. Try to see if any of these things can actually apply to you, even if it's just about tweaking up a few words or a few phrases or a few ways of looking at them, and see what feels right for you intuitively. Remember that what might work for me might not work for a friend. What works for a friend might not work for you. What works for you might not work for the person next to you, and that is perfectly okay. But what we want to get in the habit of is actually asking these questions and facing these questions and really look deep within and understanding why. What is shaping my viewpoints? What are shaping my beliefs? So when we think about God's provision, we can think about God's character. What are the different attributes and characteristics and traits of God? What do I actually think God is? What do I think God is capable of? What is it that I think that God does? What is it that I think that God wants for me? What is it that, if that's a thing, what is it that I think that God is actually doing in the grand scheme of things? Do I think that there's any kind of higher order or higher purpose to things or not? Why or why not? Do I think that God is a provider? Do I think that God is loving and faithful? Do I think that God cares about people and humanity? Do I think that God wants a certain thing for humanity? Or does God give us free will? That's a whole nother topic we can delve into for another video. But what is it that I actually think God is? How do I view God? Do I view God as distant from me, or do I view God as something that is within me, or something that I co-create with, something that I work with, something that I collaborate with? Do I view God as something that I can actually be a friend with, somebody or something that I can actually be close to? What have been the different experiences in my life that have shaped my beliefs in God, that have shaped the way I view God as a provider or a sustainer or something that brings prosperity or abundance or good things into my life, whether it be material or non-material? What is it that I think that God is doing in the background of things, if God is doing anything in the background? Have I ever mistaken God's silence for God's absence? For many of us, myself included, there have been times where we don't feel connected to the divine. We might feel so distant. We may forget that God is there. We may not know if God is there. We may feel alone. We may feel scared and isolated. We may feel like things are falling apart in front of us. We may feel like we might be punished, if anything. We may feel like things are just not going right, and how can anything good come out of this situation? How could anything, well, even if it's not good, can something just neutral or something okay come out of this situation? You know, we don't always want to we don't want to be in the habit of toxic positivity and being like, oh, everything's fine and everything's going to be great when things are falling apart in front of us. That can be so destabilizing and so inauthentic and really unhealthy and detrimental to our mental health and well-being. We want to be really honest about how we are feeling as we're going through these processes, as we're asking these questions, as we're looking at this, and as we're challenging our old viewpoints, as we're actually challenging our frameworks for thinking and living, as we are actually challenging everything that we thought that we knew. When we're starting to develop new perspectives and starting to gain more insights and wisdom and starting to learn different things, we are going to be challenging what we used to know, and that can be very destabilizing. That can be very difficult, and we might need to have a good support system under our belt to help us navigate through that. We might have to be able to cultivate different types of strengths and wisdoms within ourselves to get through that. We might need to do a good self-care routine or self-care practice. We might need to know who to reach out to whenever things are hard for us. We might even need to reach out to a mental health care provider or a coach or a mentor or advisor that we really trust, who might have gone through similar experiences or have had a lot of experience in working with people who have gone through these types of experiences. I would encourage each of you to be discerning, again, whenever you're going through these types of things, whenever you're asking these kinds of questions. Do you think that your life would truly change if you believed that God was providing for you? Do you think that that belief would actually help you in your life? If you knew that God was actually going to take care of you and carry you through every single situation, every season of your life, how would that change your actions today? How is it going to improve the quality of your life, if it will improve the quality of your life? Is there anything that you are doubting about the God of your understanding right now and the God of your understanding's ability to help you and provide for you that is harming you in any way? Is doubt preventing you from taking a leap of faith that might be something that's good for you? Is it preventing you from moving forward on a goal or a dream that you've had for yourself, but you were too scared to actually put yourself out there? Is it preventing you from reaching out to that person and telling them how you feel about them? Maybe you have developed feelings or interest or attraction towards somebody, but you're afraid of being rejected by them. If you believed in God and believed in God taking care of you, would you actually have some faith to move forward in something that you want, and regardless of what the outcome is, and regardless of whether or not it is something that is actually going to be good for you in the long run, do you actually have faith that you will be okay and that God will take care of you and carry you through everything? Is that how you want to view God? These are how I view God. I think you could tell from these videos a little bit more of where I lean, but I want you to really challenge even me on what I believe in. I want you to actually challenge the things that are coming up here and ask yourself what you believe. With respect. We don't want to get into debate society in an aggressive way. We don't want to get into hateful commentary or anything like that. But we do want to gain perspective. Part of the growth process is being open-minded to different perspectives, to hearing different things. We may not like it. We may have some defenses that come up. We may have certain things that just seem outrageous, and it's like, all right, man, I don't know too much about that, but thanks for sharing. That's perfectly okay. But really, really, really give yourself a chance to really challenge that and think, is there anything that I think that God should help me with? Is there anything that I think that God should provide for me? Have there ever been any times where I have rejected God's help in my life? Have there ever been any times where I didn't actually want to receive God's help in my life? And why was that? What was going on? Have there ever been times where blessings appeared after disappointments when I least expected it? Have there been any supports or resources that came about, or opportunities that opened up when I wasn't expecting it? And did that come from God? Why or why not? What do you think? What expectations do you have about whether or not God is actually going to care about you and carry you through something? What beliefs do you actually have about God carrying you through a situation? Are there any poems or songs or books or readings or quotes that help you through these situations, through navigating this, through discerning these things? Is there anything you can draw from? Is there anything that you can learn from these things? Is there anything that you can stay open to? Do you think that if you trusted God fully, that you would actually be taken care of? What would happen if you let go of your outcomes and your expectations and your plans and ideas and how you think everything needs to work out? What would happen as a result of that? Would you be better off or not? Is there any way to really tell right now? Is there anything we can look back on things we've experienced in the past, and can we take that with us today? Would that be helpful for us, or do we have to maybe accept that maybe things are not going to always happen the way we expect them to, or we might not have any idea of how things are going to happen in the future, and maybe we need to just accept the fact that there's going to be some mystery and we're going to have to sit with the discomfort of all of that. It's really hard for us to depend on God. For many of us, we can't physically see God, and we might not always feel God's presence with us. We may not always be thinking of God every single second of every day. And so becoming dependent on that can be really hard, especially if we don't have a lot of practice in that, or especially if we still have certain ideas and viewpoints of what God is, and maybe that's a God that is condemning, or a God that is harmful, or not loving, or not protective, or does bad things. If we hold those viewpoints of God, which many of us do from time to time, or many of those kinds of beliefs come up, if we believe that about God, it only makes sense that we're not going to want to depend on it, that we're not going to want to surrender and let go. But how can surrendering and letting go of certain outcomes help us, and how could it actually be detrimental to us? Are there certain things that maybe we don't need God in? That's something worth exploring. Are there certain areas of my life that I don't need to rely on God, that I don't need to trust God? Or is it that I don't need to trust and rely on a certain idea of God? Is there a certain belief system or a certain way of looking at God or a certain way of connecting with God that can carry me through every single thing in my life? For example, can I trust or can I believe in the idea of God being deep within me? God being my intuition, God being the wisdom within myself, my higher self, the idea of the idealized higher version of myself. Is that an idea of God? And can that carry me through different situations in my life? Why or why not? Yes or no? How so? What would that look like? Would that help me? Would there be some ways that that would help me, some ways that that wouldn't help me, and why? Do we need to maybe apply different beliefs of God in different situations and different seasons of our life, and can that help us? Am I relying on myself, my own willpower, my own control, my own forcefulness, my own manipulations in different areas of my life? Or can I invite God into that? Can it be a little bit of both? Can I work with God? Can there be a balance? Should there be a balance? Should one trump the other, and why? What would surrender look like in a current circumstance? Think of where you are today. Think of a situation that's difficult for you, whether it's something that everything seems like it's falling apart, things aren't going the way you want, maybe you're feeling disappointment, hurt, betrayal, anger, sadness, fear. Maybe you're feeling despondent or hopeless. Think about that kind of situation. Now, I want you to think about whether or not you can stay open to inviting some kind of higher power, some kind of God, some kind of concept or belief of God in this situation. I want you to think about what you think would help you to carry you through that situation. Would it be the idea of, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I know I can get through this because I've gotten through this in the past? Can it be the idea of, I know that God might have some kind of plan or purpose for me in the long run? Some people subscribe to that belief, some do not. Can it be, regardless of what happens, I'm sure that I can cultivate some wisdom and insights and understandings of deeper truths of the situation, and from that I'll come out better in the long run? Sometimes we need to really look at different situations that we're going through in our life right now and see what we need to take with us to help anchor us and to help ground us and to help give us something to look forward to. Sometimes we may not know if something will be okay. There's a lot of things that go on in the world that just make absolutely no sense to us. Like, how could this happen? How could God allow this to happen? Is this coming from God, is what we want to ask. We all have different beliefs on this. And to be very transparent with all of you, I don't know the answers to that. Sometimes we have to come up with our own answers, our own understandings, our own meanings that we subscribe to when it comes to this, our own meanings that we apply to these things. What makes the most sense, whether intuitively or mentally, logically? Can it just be that we need to accept multiple different perspectives and see the truth and wisdom in them at the same time? When we talk about God's provision, as you can see, a lot of different types of topics within God can come up. It can go in so many different directions. There's so many different ways to discuss God. There's so many different aspects and attributes to discuss about God. And all of it can be really scary sometimes for us, especially if we're new at this, especially if we're going through something, especially if we're unsure, we're struggling with something, or we're scared of something happening, or don't know what to really expect. And it can also be really exciting, and it can be very interesting and fascinating. And we may want to know more. We may want to delve more into different kinds of topics within the topic of God. We might want to understand God. We may want to yearn for God's presence. We may want to feel connected to God. So when we think about going back to the idea of God's provision and connecting with God, something that might help us is to recognize the different sources of God's provision in our life. What have been times in the past where God provided for me? What have been times in the past where things didn't work out in a certain situation, but looking back on it, I see that was for my own good and for the betterment of myself? What were times where help came that was unexpected, whether it was from another person or something just came up randomly, or maybe we gained a aha moment or an idea that helped us in a situation, and it was exactly what we needed at exactly the right time? How is God calling me to provide for myself? How is God calling me to provide for someone else? Something we have to remember is that sometimes God speaks through other people. Sometimes God brings other people into our life. Other people are placed in front of us in certain situations to help us. So is it possible that if that's the case, that maybe it's our turn to help other people? How can I show up for another person? How can I be of service? What is it that I think that God might be calling me to do? What is it that I think that God is teaching me right now? What is it that God is doing to improve my life or improve that person's life in some way? What is it that God is actually given me as a strength, as an attribute, as a force, as a powerful force? Has God created me as a powerful force? And can that be brought into different situations, different scenarios, different relationships in my life? And can that actually help a community, a group, a country, a state, a person in their own life? It doesn't have to be this big, giant thing. It can be a very small thing, like just having a conversation with somebody that helps them to keep moving forward, that gives them a little bit of faith. It's faith even the size of a mustard seed we talked about. Can that help a person to just trust that, hey, maybe I'm going through something really hard, but this person went through it, so maybe it's possible that I can go through it too. You know, a lot of times we think of God's provision as a material thing, and in some ways it can be. We can go into the topic of why does God provide money and resources and food and shelter and clean water and all these things and comforts to one person or one group over another. You know, that's a big topic. It's a very big topic that we can delve into. That's not easy to look at, but is also a good question for us to consider. Why is it that this happens for me but not them? And then there's that guilt that comes up. There could be that inner conflict that comes up when we go through that. But for the purposes of this, can we see what non-materials God has given us? What non-material gifts have we been given from God? For example, the inner resources, the strengths, the guidance, the wisdom. Can it be also the family we were born into, the people we come across, the experiences that we have? Can it be faith, cultivation of faith, all the experiences that have shaped us in our life, that have brought us to where we are today? Can it be all the challenges we've gone through that have shaped us in some way? Can those challenges actually be put to good use? Has there been any time where you felt God's presence, and is that God's provision? Is that an example of that? Have there ever been any times where you feel like something happened that was well beyond your comprehension of how it can happen, but it happened nonetheless? Have there been any strengths you were able to cultivate as a result of these experiences? Have there been any blessings that you might have overlooked in the past? Think about 5 times in your life where something happened that you couldn't explain. Think about 5 times in your life where something happened that you couldn't have explained, and maybe it was a good thing, maybe it was a bad thing, but maybe it was an example of how God provided for you in some way in your life. Have there been any prayers that were answered in unexpected ways? Have there been any things that you have decreed or claimed to happen, and they happened? Did you have a strong faith, for example? Maybe you set a very strong intention for something to happen, and it happened. Maybe there are times you do set those intentions and they don't happen. What do we think the reasons could be? What could be behind the scenes for that? What could be some kind of reasons or purpose for that? Were there any seasons in your life where you're like, I don't know how I'm getting through this. I don't know if I'm surviving this. I don't know if I'm getting out of this thing alive. And have you been able to get through that season? Many of us experience those kinds of seasons in our life where they're really dark and things are really scary. And we may really question whether we are going to live through a certain season. And that is a very natural part of being human. If you're going through a season like that right now, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to either a mental health professional or somebody who you trust, someone who can support you and help you to sustain you through those tough times. Sometimes we need extra supports from other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for many of us who have gotten through those seasons and we look back on it, we see that God was carrying us through every step of the way, even when we didn't see it or feel it or trust it, or maybe we wanted nothing to do with God. Maybe we didn't want anything to do with a God who could allow this to happen. Maybe we couldn't understand how a good and loving God would ever allow something like that to happen in our lives. Many of us have gone through something called the dark night of the soul. What are your thoughts on that? What do you know about that? Is that something you want to explore right now as far as an understanding of it? If you could say something to your younger self, what would it be? Let's say you've gone through that situation and you have certain insights and wisdoms today. What would you tell your younger self? And can you apply that to something that you might be struggling with right now? So, what I want to leave you with is to really think about all of these questions. Think about every single thing that was just discussed, every topic. Think about what really came up for you with that. Were there any things that made no sense or you didn't agree with? Were there any things that felt like there might be some truth to it? And really explore whether you agreed with it or whether you didn't agree with it or whether you're unsure. Really explore why. What is actually coming up for you? What beliefs do you actually have about any of these things? For example, if you think that everything mentioned in this video is utter BS, okay. Why? Elaborate on that. Really look at that and sit with that. Is it that these topics are BS, or do they challenge you in a way that you haven't been challenged before? Is it that you need to stay more open-minded to something? Is it that it's just not for you and that's okay, and there's another framework for thinking that works better for you? That is okay too. if you agree with every single thing that was brought up here, is it possible that there might be some other topics or concepts or frameworks for thinking that you can apply into your life, and why? And how can that help you? What do you think is actually in your best interest in the grand scheme of things? What is in the best interest of your community, the people around you, your relationships? How are you, as being one part of the great whole, actually able to make an impact in some way? And can God sit with you throughout that process? Can God provide for you throughout that process? Can God work with you throughout that process? Can you work with God? Can you invite God into it? Can you ask God for support and wisdom and guidance? If you found this video to be helpful, please like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more courses and workshops and videos on topics ranging from philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and everything that means to be human. Have a good day.